The Metropolis Marvel, the Red Blue Blur, Smallville, the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow, the Last Son of Krypton, Earth's Protector, Kal-El, Clark Joseph Kent, otherwise known as being faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. No, it's a plane. Wait, it's
Superman!
Today, in a world where it seems hope has been lost, people are joyless, hurting, sick, in pain and struggling, the people need a symbol of peace and hope. And what better hero to use than the one and only Superman, my favorite superhero. This disrespect stops today. My name is Detective Hemmings, codenamed Paperwork. Welcome to K7, why Superman is the greatest hero of all time. Superman is lame. I don't like Superman. Superman is boring. Blah, 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 blah. Maybe. Superman isn't perfect by any means, but more than half the people commenting about Superman know nothing. They know none of his stories, his conception, his history, his impact, his feats, and the fact he's considered to be one of the first comic book superheroes. There have been heroes from mythology, and technically I think it's called the Clock, beats out Superman by a few years or so, but Superman was the first superhero that really took off. He's had great stories written about him, he's had mediocre stories written about him, and he's had bad ones written about him. He's had good movies, mediocre movies, he's had bad movies. I admit he's only had bad solo games about him, but some games that he's a part of, his role is incredible. When you have a character that old, timeless, and iconic, you're bound to have hits and misses, ups and downs, ebbs and flows. Superman represents an outdated idealism that tries to be relevant in our contemporary society, yet anytime writers try to break him out of that Boy Scout shell just a little bit, everyone cries about how un-Superman-like it was. Make it make sense. But with that being said, please like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so Superman can hear it and come save the day. Superman's origin, upbringing, and various iteration over the years is important to get into, so let's start there, at the beginning. Superman, Kal-El, Clark Kent, is an alien who was shipped off to Earth before his homeworld Krypton blew up. He landed in Smallville, Kansas, and was raised by the Kents, two loving farmers who took in this godlike baby, taught him human decency, and instilled the right intangibles into him. That way he would turn out to be a guardian angel instead of a tyrant god. There have been many iterations and versions of Superman over the years. There is Ultraman, who is the evil version of Superman, remember this, we'll circle back, from a parallel Earth, but sometimes he's not considered the same character. Almost a decade ago, Gods and Monsters introduced a more morally ambiguous Superman who was the biological son of General Zod, not Jor-El. The Red Sun series has a Superman who lands in Soviet Russia instead of Kansas, and he's kind of like a communist. Some of these versions are still very much Superman, but with a twist or by just tweaking one or two things, and some are commonly accepted as not Superman, but other Kryptonians across the multiverse that share the same name, code name, or similar heritage. Nowadays, people tend to root for the villains or fall in love with the anti-hero archetype, the morally gray characters. Superman being about truth, justice, and the American way. Is an ideal that no longer really has much relevance. He stands for hope and is man's striving ideal, perfection, the pinnacle of power, speed, ability, and intelligence. Which wherein lies the exact problem. That's boring. He's too perfect, to a fault even, and it's hard for people to believe he has any real issues, but he does. Superman's tale is a story about home versus heritage, a god if you will, trying to find his place amongst men, navigate politics, love, and controlling his powers, plus using them for the greater good. The most oppressive thing about Clark's powers isn't that he's ridiculously strong, it's his self-restraint and control over his abilities. This is a man who could sneeze the earth into oblivion, but he does the harder thing.
It's about to go down.
He controls himself and fights for us. In a world filled with corruption, terrible people and such, Superman chooses to see the good in humanity and fight for its survival. What's wrong with that? He's a superhero and a good man. Well, that's boring, right? Well, Man of Steel tried to offer a more refreshing version of Superman that people dismiss for being un-Superman-like. This time around, his upbringing while nurturing and loving was flawed but realistic. Jonathan Kent even suggests that for the sake of hiding his own secret and not scaring humans, he should let some people die and not use his powers to save them. And of course, Superman destroyed millions of dollars worth of property, also lots of people died, and he killed General Zod. Killed Zod! Everyone lost their fucking minds. This was a new, inexperienced Superman whose first challenge as a hero was to fight against his own people, beings that possess the same amount of power and strength as he does, plus has all of his abilities. These guys were in an army, led by a general. What was he supposed to do? Zod gave Kal an ultimatum: kill me or watch this innocent family die. It took the literal destruction of an entire city to get this man in a headlock. What was he supposed to do? Lock him up? Let him go? Give him a lecture about not terraforming other people's planets? Superman did the right thing. He killed Zod. Not only has Superman killed in a movie before, and in comics, Zod especially, the goody-goody argument that people complain about was challenged in Man of Steel, and everyone whined about it. And let me make something clear. I am not making a judgment on whether or not this is a good or bad film. You make that decision for yourself. It's not like he wasn't distraught about what he did. He was visibly horrified by what he had to do. This could serve as the jumping point that I call the defective gene in Superman's DNA that stops him from killing anyone ever for the most part. Batman has this disease too. This is slightly contradictory, but people like Joker need to die. Joker fills up a cemetery every time he escapes prison. Putting him down permanently is the right thing to do, as far as I'm concerned. In an attempt to write more humane, relatable stories about Superman, a few DC writers took away his powers for about a year. He got his powers back eventually, but personally I never thought taking away Superman's abilities is really an interesting way to explore his character, because you remove the balance a little bit of him having to be Superman and Clark Kent. There are tons of great Supermen and Superman stories out there and cool iterations of him that I think people would enjoy. They just need to look. Injustice Superman, I think, is a pretty good Superman, all things considered. Bear with me for a sec. In that world, the Joker causes Supes to hallucinate and see Lois Lane as Doomsday, who is carrying his child, not Doomsday, Lois. He flies her into space, effectively killing her, thinking it was Doomsday. But to make matters worse, if I remember correctly, her heartbeat was connected to a bomb in Metropolis. He lost his love, his child, and millions died, and his city was destroyed. Superman then kills the Joker and becomes a holier-than-thou tyrant who feels the world can only work under his rule. The main reason I never hated this version of Superman is because I can always see that the Clark that everyone knows and loves was in there and reared his head often. But he was going through so much anguish, pain, and anger, you could never really fully get through to him anymore. It's awesome work and I highly recommend it. However, it's time for the return of the Boy Scout to his classic heroic form. I guess it's time to tackle why these creative teams, artists, and writers with their annoying habit of wanting to bring down our heroes or make them villains. Here we go. This new wave of wanting to tear down superheroes, make them evil, or mind control them is tired and played out. I am not interested in evil Superman. I want to see him save the world, kissing babies, smacking criminals, ingratiating himself with humanity and his community, rescuing cats out of trees, and being a good person. We don't need an evil Superman. Ultraman is a thing. Even Smallville had a version of Ultraman. Long story short, Clark was raised by the Luthors and not the Kents on this parallel Earth. And the crime syndicate has existed for years. That is literally the evil Justice League. If you want to see what that looks like, then just use that kryptonite snorting asshole and leave our Superman the hell alone. I can watch or read Owlman if I want to see a bad version of Batman, so just stop already. This is not good, it is not clever, it isn't a new concept, and it's played out. What we really need to do is dive more into what Kal thinks, feels, and does when he's not actively being Superman. For example, Clark Kent doing his job at the Daily Planet. Whether it's just him or with Lois Lane, I'd like to see it because it was super dope to see in Smallville and the extended version of Batman vs Superman. That's his day job and he's not by any means bad at it, but he's really deep down more of a scientist like his father before him, and a lot of people don't know that. Superman is often in his fortress of solitude experimenting with off-world technology, creatures, and even trying to invent and create. He's extremely well read and savvy in the field of biology, chemistry, and physics. Kal also has an extraterrestrial zoo in his fortress. The complaint you hear about Superman often is that you can't write interesting stories for him because he's hacks. He's OP, he's broken, he's too strong.
That man won't quit as long as he can still draw a breath. None of my teammates will. Me? I've got a different problem.
I'm in danger!
I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard, always taking constant care not to break something, to break someone. Never allowing myself to lose control, even for a moment, or someone could die.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
But you can take it, can't you, big man? What we have here is a rare opportunity for me to cut loose and show you just how powerful I really am.
Even with all his powers, Clark is not without weaknesses. The obvious, well-known one being the radioactive pieces of his home world called kryptonite, specifically green kryptonite, which are literally poisonous to Kryptonians. Moreover, he loses his powers under the radiation of a red star, not immediately, but it depowers him over time. In addition to that, he has no natural defenses against magic. Magic can hurt and affect Superman, bypassing all his natural defenses. Lastly, using the innocent as a shield or hostages and the people he loves is an easy way to get an upper hand while fighting Superman, or stacking on an extra layer of difficulty that he has to overcome. So while people bitch and whine that he's overpowered, they always tend to overlook that he's by no means unstoppable. I'd argue in terms of writing or portrayal, Batman comes across as more broken and too strong. So let's wrap this up. Instead of buying into what everyone does and being a super duper Batman stan and doing the cool thing, which is the best Superman, why don't you give him a fair chance and take in some good stories with Superman at the center? He's got decades worth of movies, some games, comics, TV shows, cartoons, and align yourself with the version of Kal-El that suits you best. He is worth your time and investment. Superman is a timeless character that will still be around being awesome and iconic well after we are 6 feet in the earth. He's a solid character that can be interesting in the right hands, such as mine. Yeah, Detective Comics. If you're watching this, you need to let me write Superman because fix him. There's a lot more to be said about this legend, but we'll save that for another day, another video, and another case. We will speak more in depth about these heroes and villains and characters in due time, but consider this case solved. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you enjoyed the video.